Hello and welcome to another demonstrational video for our customers that are collecting the new Chausson 650 first line. So we'll run you around the outside controls and then we'll move on to the inside. This model does come with wheel trims. They've just not been fitted yet, but we'll run through that when we come to the accessories that come with the motorhome. So first things first, if we concentrate on the cab. We have cab blinds, okay, and the way that they are, so these are the darkening blinds. The way that they operate is you slide this panel, this little clip here, out of there, and then this goes along that trim, and as you can see, that little tab goes into a corresponding groove there, and that's how you darken off the side windows. On this model, the windscreen darkening blind pulls up from the bottom. So there's two tabs, you need one hand on that one and then your other hand on that one there, and that pulls up from the bottom, and that darkens off the windscreen portion of the cab. And then it's exactly the same operation as I've just demonstrated on the driver's side there. When you're pulling up the windscreen darkening blind, there are a couple of positions, so you can see there's a little groove there which is very similar to the one I've just demonstrated, so that you can have sort of half and half. You can have the cab sort of darkened halfway if you're pointing outwards on a pitch and you don't want people seeing into the motorhome. That's a handy little thing. Just here we have the chassis plate for the motorhome, which shows you all the weights. This is where the fuel is filled for the engine. So this flap here can only be opened when the passenger door is open, and then underneath that is the AdBlue additive. So the fuel additive, the AdBlue, goes into this flap, a nozzle behind this flap here. Okay, so that's where the AdBlue is put into the motorhome. There's an indication on the dashboard to tell you when this is becoming low. Obviously don't let this go too low because it will go into limp home mode. There's a little catch there, I don't know if you can see it too well on the video, but that keeps this door in position. Okay, so moving on to the bonnet. On this being a Ford, on the Ford model you need the key to open up the bonnet. So what you do is you put the key into this slot here, and then you turn it left, and that you can see that's opened up the bonnet. But then to fully open it you need to turn it right and at the same time lift the bonnet. So I'll do that with two hands. Okay, so that's the bonnet open. Under here we've got washer fill, oil fill, your brake fluid, dipstick there, and your coolant reservoir on this side here. If you ever need to jump start this vehicle, the battery's housed under the cab floor, so it's not easily accessible. But if you put your positive terminal onto this, there's a nodule under here. I'll just open that up. Okay, so I've removed that cap. So you put your positive terminal onto here, and then your earth goes onto that ring, that metal ring there. So that's your black cable onto there. So if you ever need to jump start this vehicle or jump start another vehicle from it, that's the safest way to do so. Underneath the bonnet here is also another weight plate, so that's showing you obviously your 3.5 and your axle weights there as well. Okay, we'll move on around the van this way. So next to the cab then we've got this locker here. This is the gas locker. So just one gas bottle into here. It will take the 6 kilogram, or if you want the refillable system, which some of our customers are having fitted now, it will take an 11 on the gas low refillable system. This is a gas pressure regulator. So what happens here is there's a flexible hose. It comes with one with the vehicle that attaches onto here. This model, we normally fit those for the customers, but this model's just finished going through its pre-delivery inspection, so it's not fully prepared yet. But there's a flexible hose that comes with the motorhome. One end goes onto here, the other end comes off and then goes onto the bottle. The bottle sits into this well here, and the bottle's actually got a tap on the top, so that's how you control the flow into the motorhome. When I say control the flow, you're either switching it on or switching it off via the tap that's on top of the Cali gas bottle. It doesn't come with gas, so you will need a gas bottle or the refillable system if you opt to go that way. Next to that we have the mains inlet, so this is where the mains cable comes into the motorhome. It does come with a mains cable, which we'll come to in a second, but the way that this goes in, okay, so this has got a lid on it like so. So you lift that lid up, open up the flap, that little lid on the end of the cable sits into a groove there. Okay, so it goes in like so, and then push this all the way in so you feel it go home positively, and then that's your mains cable coming into the motorhome. To release it, you push that little blue lever down just there, and that allows you to remove the cable from the motorhome. Next to that we've got the service locker. Okay, so in here we have the water tank. So this is the water supply for the motorhome. To fill it, you draw this filler hose across like that, open up the end of the cap and put a hose into here just until it pours out. This is like a sort of semi-translucent tank, so I don't know whether you can see that on the video, but there is some water in this, so the water level is just up to here, so you can actually see in there, but there is an indicator via a control panel inside to tell you what level your water is at. Okay, this is just access into the tank. This here can be screwed off. It's just if you want to clean the tank or get access to any of the sensors that are within the tank. Shouldn't really need to do that, but that's what that is. If you do take that off, make sure that it's fully tightened up, because as you can imagine, if you're filling up water here and this isn't tightly sealed on an O-ring in here, then you're going to get problems with the tank leaking into this locker area. It's very important that in winter, or really whenever you're not using the motorhome, that the water within it is drained down. Okay, so you can imagine if water's left in here, it turns to ice, it'll expand, and then it can damage and crack the tank and all the associated pipe works, like this pipe running down here. So to empty the tank, that's actually underneath, but we'll come to that in a second. What you can actually do with this tank, so you can calculate weights slightly better, is drain it down to 20 litres. So there's this little sticker here indicating that, and the valve to do so is this one here. So that is in the fully closed position, so maxi level, as you can see it there. That will allow you to fill the tank fully. What this system allows you to do is drain it down to 20 litres. So 20 litres of water is 20 kilos, so it allows you to calculate your weights. And obviously if you want to travel with a bit of water in, you're not necessarily having to carry the full capacity of the tank. So to drain that down to 20 litres, you lift this tap up like so, and you can probably see there's water escaping in the bottom there. Okay, so that takes it down to the what they call mini level, as indicated on this here. To fully drain this tank down, there's a tap on the underside of the motorhome, which is just under the sill here. Okay, so that white tap, it's just a compression fitting tap. So this dial here, if you turn that quarter of a turn, I think it is, that will then drain all of the water out of the tank. So that's sort of in storage or frost safe mode when that's fully opened. So going back to the locker above, so back to the locker above the tank there. Next to the tank, we've got here some electrical breakers and fuses. So that's a mains circuit breaker, okay, like you would expect to see at home. If you lift this cover off, you can see behind there's just main circuit breakers. So lift that up. That's your main circuit breaker there. You can actually test that this is operational and that you've got a main supply coming into the motorhome by pressing that test button there. So if I press this now, that's flipped that down so that it's testing that you've got a main supply coming in and also that this circuit breaker is working. There's another one next to it. This one here is redundant. It's if you wanted to have a secondary appliance like air conditioning fitted, so that one doesn't actually isn't operational. Next to that we have the 12 volt circuit fuses. Okay, so in the actually it's labelled on here so you can actually see, so for example there's a picture of a light bulb. If you get a problem with the 12 volt circuitry, then that's where the fuses live for that circuit. Okay, so working on around the motorhome again, then we come to the garage. So this is the storage area, really good storage area for a short motorhome. The most important thing in terms of functionality in here, this cover can be removed, and again going back to what I said about the importance of draining the water out of the motorhome, particularly in frosty conditions. The boiler, so the appliance that deals with heating the water, needs to be drained down. Okay, so the toggle switch that's just here, that is now in the closed position. So in order to get water flowing through the motorhome and it not drain out onto the floor, this toggle needs to be in the horizontal position like so. When it's in the vertical position, I'm just going to lift that up. You can see we've got water spilling out onto the floor, so that is draining the water out of the boiler. This is a really important one because if water's left in there in the boiler and it freezes, it can damage the boiler and it's an expensive repair. As you can see, obviously you've got a lot of associated pipe work in this area here. So when you're draining down the fresh water tank, which I've shown you, and this, it's important to switch the pump on. Just let it run for 30 seconds or so, but also open up all the taps that are inside the motorhome, like your shower, the sink and the bathroom sink also, because what that does is it lets air into those taps as the water's flowing out of all this pipe work here. And if you just give the pump a little run, it'll push all the excess water out of these pipes so that water can't freeze in these pipes and damage them. Also in this locker here we have the rolled up carpets, which are these here. The things in this bag here are the cushions that are required to make up the lower bed, but we'll come to that in a second. In this cardboard box here, there's the winder for the awning. Now, there's a separate video on our YouTube channel which shows you how to operate the awning, so I'm not going to go into that. But there is, in the description of this video, I'll try and remember to include the awning video also. Okay, so that's the cover replaced. It's just a Velcro attachment, that, so you just basically pull that off and it's attached via Velcro. There's tie down points in here if you were storing a bicycle or other heavier items. Then you can tie with bungee cords or straps anything that you want to store in here down to the floor. So working on around the motorhome again, then there is a reversing camera on this model, and it's the lens for that is just here. Okay, so it's a good position because you can actually see any obstacles as you're approaching. Just make sure obviously that's kept clean. If it's actually got the sticker on it now, but obviously that'll be removed. But if that's dirty, then obviously you're not going to get the true representation of what's behind you. These rails here are if you wanted to have an optional bike rack fitted. Just one more thing as we go round, the boiler on this model, the drain for it is just here, but the boiler is housed high up here. This is the vent for the boiler, so when it's operating on gas, it needs to flue and exhaust its well, the exhaust gases need to come out of this vent here. In order for it to work properly, this cover has to come off. Okay, so the way that is fixed is there's two little pegs that go into those grooves there that sit on top. So put the lid on like so, and then just snaps on like that. So the reason for that existing is it just stops road debris and dirt, insects, etc. getting into the vent for that. But the boiler will not light unless that cover is removed. So if you're finding that your boiler's not igniting, that's probably the first port of call. Okay, so I've removed the things that should come with the motorhome and put them on the ground here. So we've got cab carpets, which are these here. This model also comes with an insulating cover for the windscreen. As you can see, that's how it's installed, like that. So what that does is it prevents condensation building up on the inside. It's reflective, so in summer obviously it'll reflect the sunlight, and it just prevents the windscreen from freezing up. Okay, so this is the mains cable that I referred to that comes with the motorhome. This is a towing eye. So the Ford comes with just the towing eye and this puncture repair kit here. So within this you've got a compressor that's plugged in via the 12 volts on the dashboard, and then this repair foam here, which is screwed onto this. You remove that cap there, screw this down onto it, and that then in theory would repair your punctured tyre. There's a pressure monitor on there as well. They're the wheel trims that have yet to be fitted. Next to that locker here we have the toilet cassette. So all the toilet waste ends up in a cassette here. I'll show you how that operates now. So to open this up, you press that in like so, and that reveals the toilet cassette. So in theory then this would be full of toilet waste. There's an indicator inside to tell you when that is full. So to empty it, you lift this handle up like so, slide this cassette out, and then to empty it you turn that nozzle like so. There is a cap for the end of this, as I say, it's within the pack, so there's a cap that goes onto the end of that screws on. So you remove that cap, turn the cassette upside down and pour the toilet waste away. As you're doing so, press this button in here. It lets air into the cassette as the liquid is coming out, that prevents it glugging and splashing back. This cassette requires a chemical that breaks down all the smells, gets rid of all the solids that would end up in the cassette. So to put the once you've emptied it, then what I tend to do is fill it full of water again by sliding that cover back, opening up this valve here, filling it full of water with a hose pipe, and all these things are you know, next to the disposal point, so you've generally got a hose next to the disposal point. Fill it full of water again, close it back up, swill it around, and then empty it all back out again. And then to get it ready for use again, you open it back up, put a little bit of chemical into the bottom, and it does come with a little sample of the chemical that's required within the pack. So you put a lining on the bottom of the cassette of the chemical and a little bit of water, and then it's ready to use again. Before replacing the cassette back into its housing, make sure that this is closed and fully closed, otherwise you'll be trying to force this into a mechanism that it won't slide into. So it sort of like slides in like so. It's got to be straight. Don't try and force it, otherwise you'll damage the mechanism. To make it easier to get over to the waste disposal point, this has got wheels on the bottom and an extendable handle. So the handle extends on a telescopic rod like so, and then you can wheel it over to the disposal point. Before putting it back in its housing, just make sure that this handle clips back into position like that. On the end of this cap that goes onto the end of here, there is actually a little measuring, it's like a measuring cup that will allow you to measure out the right amount of chemical that's required to go back into the toilet once it's been emptied. So to put this back in, line up the wheels on the runner like that and just simply slide it back into position. You know it's gone home properly when that little handle sits into that groove. There's an indicator inside on the toilet itself to tell you what level or when the cassette requires emptying, but as you'll see when I show you the toilet inside, you can actually see down into that cassette, so you'll have a rough idea. the wastewater, so everything that goes down the shower, down the kitchen sink and bathroom sink, ends up in a tank underneath the motorhome, and it's indicated via this sticker here, which is handy because generally on sites, when the disposal point for the what's called grey water, or the wastewater that's in this tank, you drive over a cattle grid, so you can sort of just get your back wheel just past the grid, and then you know that this is lined up and ready to empty the grey waste, or the waste that ends up in the tank. So to empty that, this lever here, this, to close it you push it forward, and then to open it you pull it towards you. Okay, so I'll just demonstrate that now. I'm going to pull this lever. Obviously you can see the wastewater's flowing out, and it comes out of that. You can see the bars attached to an outlet there, and that's where the wastewater ends up coming out. Just one thing I forgot to mention, it does come with a fire extinguisher. We don't fit it just in case we fit it in the incorrect place, because it requires screwing into the cabinetry to fit it. Probably just keep it handy in one of the cupboards that's next to the kitchen. Okay, so moving on around the motorhome again, then we have these vents. These are vents for the fridge. What it does is it draws cool air in at the bottom and expels warm air at the top, so it allows the fridge to cool basically, and that's sort of where the fridge is housed, and that's the back of the fridge. So they're just vents for the fridge. Above that we've got the awning light, and that's switched on and off from inside the motorhome. Okay, the main habitation door. This model doesn't have central locking, so some of the Chausson models have central locking. This doesn't. The Ford will actually auto lock. If you get out of this habitation door, the cab will lock. Not a problem on this model, because if the habitation door locked, you can sometimes get into trouble where you're locked out of the vehicle, but not an issue on this model. Okay, so that concludes the outside demonstration. We'll move on to the inside. Okay, so I'm inside the motorhome here now. Right next to the habitation door, we've got the control panel for the motorhome. Okay, so to switch the motorhome on, you've got this on-off button here. To get the lights and the 12-volt circuitry running, it's actually this blue button here. So with this particular model, if you leave this green button on here, it will allow the solar panel to stay active. But if you've got the blue button on, you're drawing a current through the motorhome. So the way to leave it in storage really is with the blue button off, but the green button on. Okay, so that basically just switches on your 12-volt and your lighting circuitry. There's separate light switches here, which will operate. So there's lights there just on the footwell, you can see. So there's a set of light switches there. There's another one just here, which does the lights for underneath the bed. Okay, so next to those switches there on the control panel, we've got a picture of a tap. That's the water pump. So what that does is it pumps water from the freshwater tank, which I've showed you how to fill on the outside, through all the pipe work, through the boiler, fills the boiler, and then eventually it'll come out of the taps in the kitchen and in your bathroom. It's important that you switch this pump on, like so. When you've filled it full of water, switch the pump on, come to your taps, open up the tap on both hot and cold. So way to do it is open it up on hot first and wait until you get a pure flow of water coming out of here. Then you know that the pump has pushed all the water through the pipework, got rid of all the air, and then it's ready to use. Because if you switch your boiler on without having purged the system through, as I've described, basically you're heating thin air inside the boiler, which isn't good for the boiler. So do that on hot first, and then switch the tap over to cold. It's just a single lever mixer tap, and do exactly the same. You'll get a spluttering through here. Wait until you get a pure flow of water, and then you know that the system is then ready to use. Do exactly the same on the shower in the bathroom, and exactly the same on the bathroom sink as well. So that's the water pump. Don't allow this water pump to run without any water in it, because it will basically, it's running too fast and it'll burn the pump out. So it needs the resistance of the water in the system to work properly. That's the awning light switch. So that switches the that light that I showed you that's just underneath the awning on and off. This button here switches, it tells you about your level. Okay, so that's your battery level, so that's your leisure battery. I don't know whether you can make that out in the video very well, but that's showing you a picture of a motorhome. So that's your motorhome leisure battery, okay, and it's indicated via these lights here. This here is a picture of a cab, so that's your cab battery, so you can monitor the level of your cab battery. So they're both in good condition. This button here shows a picture of a water tank, so that is showing you the level of your fresh water. Okay, so you could see from the tank outside, which we talked about, there's some water in there, and this is indicating how much is in there. The next button along will allow you to darken or lighten the display on here, because you can imagine if you're in bed at night, this can actually end up being quite bright, so it allows you to dull the lights on that. This little light here next to the picture of a cable will come on when you've got a mains supply coming into the motorhome. So another quick reference point to ensure that you've got mains supply coming into the motorhome. When the waste tank is full, there's a little light that illuminates next to that one there. When the fresh water is empty, there's a little light that comes on just there. Okay, next to that we have the diesel heater. So this model's fitted with a Webasto diesel heater. Couldn't be simpler this. You really, all you need to do is just turn this dial around, and then you've got the temperature control. So in this position here, it's going to be its hottest, so on and so forth. So the more you're anti-clockwise, the cooler it'll be. Further clockwise, the warmer it'll be. You know it's operational because we've got a green light showing here. When you first switch this on, it does draw quite a lot of power, so you might get flickering on the lights in the motorhome. It's nothing to worry about, perfectly normal. So what that does is it'll draw a lot of power to heat up the burner on the diesel heater. This diesel heater draws fuel from the cab, so there's not a separate tank for this. It draws fuel from the cab. If the fuel is low on the if your diesel fuel is low, it won't ignite. So if it's on reserve and you're trying to heat the motorhome, that won't work. One of the main advantages with this system is that you can have it on while you're traveling, so it doesn't, you know, you can't travel with gas switched on under normal circumstances, but you can travel with the heating on because this is using diesel fuel. Okay, so moving on around the motorhome again, then we have the freezer. So freezer at the top, fridge underneath. To open and close these, it's just a flap there. To switch this on, you've got your control panel here, so it's a long press on this button here. So that all lights up. This is what's known as a three-way fridge. So it'll run on 3 different fuel types. You can select your fuel by pressing this button here. Sorry, this button here selects your fuel, this one here. Okay, so you can see there we've got a picture of a mains supply, so that's 240 volt. And the next one along is 12 volts, so that draws power from the alternator, from the engine alternator. It will only really work when the engine's running, and it only really keeps it cool. So it's for transit cooling once you've cooled the fridge down on another fuel source. And the next one along is gas, so you can run the fridge perfectly efficiently and well on gas, much the same as electric, so it'll work perfectly efficiently on gas and electric, but the 12 volt is for transit cooling once you've got it cool. The other option you can have is this A, which is automatic, so that will automatically select the most relevant power source. So if your gas runs out, for example, it'll switch over to electric. It'll actually look for electric first, then it'll try and find gas, then it'll try and find the 12 volt. The advantage is if you forget to switch your fuel type, it will automatically do it. So you're moving off in between destinations, this fridge will actually select its power source for you. This is the temperature control. So on a warmer day, you want the fridge to be working slightly warmer. There's no hard and fast rule to this, you've just got to sort of feel it out really. But on a really cold and freezing day, if the ambient temperature is really low, you don't want this to be working overtime, because it'll freeze, basically freeze up the fridge. To switch it on and off, it's just a long press on this here. If you're leaving this fridge for any length of time, you don't want stagnant air building up in this. So there's actually a little catch here. Sorry, this catch here, it keeps the fridge closed, permanently closed, so it's just another safety catch. If you want to leave the fridge door slightly ajar, which to allow it to breathe so you don't get that stagnant air, this little arm here will sit into the catch there. You can see that it just keeps the fridge door slightly ajar. Okay, you've got your TV bracket here. To open this TV bracket, you just press that lever in and it allows you to slide the bracket out, and then this, you mount your TV to this here. To adjust that little peg is pulled down, and then that will allow you to swivel this around. You can also tilt it via this knob here, so if you unscrew that, it'll allow you to tilt this to and fro. So into the bathroom then, the toilet. The way to use this is lift the lid, open this valve here, which is attached to that blade which I showed you on top of the cassette itself. So push that across like so, and it opens and closes this blade here. So then that is access straight through into that cassette, which I showed you how to empty outside. So to use it, open it up, like I just described, use the toilet, press that blue button which is the flush, and then close it back up. Okay, so just make sure that that's closed for when you're travelling, otherwise you'll get the liquid or the toilet waste in the bottom there slushing around, which nobody wants. When it's full or requires emptying, there's a little light that illuminates there to tell you that it needs emptying, so that you just go through the process that I showed you when we were outside. You've got access through into the garage here, so that's just you slide that across and you've got access into the storage. You've got your wardrobe, okay, so hanging space in there. Next to that we've got the shower, just a magnetic strip on there, keeps the shower door closed. For when you're travelling, I would take this shower head out and lay it flat in there, because if that falls out as you're travelling and falls onto this plastic shower tray, it can damage it. You've got a sliding door here. Just make sure this velcro's on there for travelling, because this will slide across and you're in danger of damaging the door if it slides across as you're cornering. Okay, so we've moved on to the kitchen area now. The controls for the boiler, which are housed in this corner here, where I showed you how to empty it and where that vent is. These controls here to switch the boiler on and off. So this is for the heating of your water, completely separate to the heating of the van, which I showed you, which has got that Webasto diesel heater. To do this, you've got a gas, so you can switch it on gas and electric, or both. So if you're off grid and you've no electric, then use this one here. You've got two temperatures, 50 or 70. This is a rocker switch, so put it into the 70 position. I would just leave it on 70 and mix it with cold, so you've got a lot of warm water. There's an indicator here that's just come on to say that the boiler hasn't lit. It won't light at the moment because we haven't got any gas connected, but it may take 2 or 3 attempts to light this, because it will need to draw the gas through from the bottle to eventually light the boiler. So it's automatic ignition, but if this red light appears here, it's failed and it won't reignite. You've got to switch it off, wait until that completely goes out, and then try again. So just as I said, the vent for the boiler needs to be removed, otherwise it won't light. that vent on the boiler will sense that there's a carbon monoxide build-up in the flue of the boiler, and it won't ignite. So it's a safety feature. So in the middle it's off, top position is 50, lower position is 70. The one next to that is if you want to heat the boiler on electric. It takes slightly longer to heat up on electric, but it will stay hot. Exactly the same position. So you've got positions on the switch. You've got high temperature and low temperature. It's a rocker switch. Okay, so you need to obviously be plugged in for that to work. You can switch it on both if you want to heat it up very quickly, and then revert to electric if you don't want to be burning up your own fuel, which is the gas. The switches to adjust the table and the bed are housed just up here underneath the sink. So this is the bed switch. See there, picture of a bed, and that's the table switch. Okay, so the table goes up and down electrically, like so, via this switch here, and then the bed goes up and down electrically as well, via the switch next to it. So obviously you need the table to go down fully to allow you to bring the bed all the way down. Okay, so the bed will actually go all the way down to the seating area, to the level of this, so it's a nice low bed. As you can see, for a small van, it's a very big bed. This lounge area at the bottom here will also make a bed. I'll do that now and just show you how that operates. Okay, so to make the bed up, you get the table in this position, pull out this arm so it's supported, have the table in that position like that, bring the table down to the same level as this seating. Okay, so what I've done there is I've drawn the table right down to the lowest position. The cushions that were in the garage, I've brought those in, and I've seated this one, large one, in the centre on top of the table. The two other pieces sitting like this. They've got legs on them that support them from underneath. So this one, for example, you can see it's got this leg on it that extends. The way to push that leg back in is it's got an arrow on it like so. Push that in like that, and it allows you to fold the cushions flat. So you can see how I had that one with the legs supporting it and one end sitting on the lip of the table. Exactly the same with this section here. Okay, so that's the bed cushions removed. This table will swivel around and it'll also push to and fro. There's a tightening bolt just here that will allow you to adjust the tension for that so that it's not moving around when you're in transit. Okay, so this motorhome, it's got 4 belted seats. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. The way that those seats work is that you take the cushions off, and then underneath there's this flat seat here. You turn this dial here 1/4 of a turn, and it'll allow you to lift this back up, and that forms the back for the seat with a seat belt. Okay, so that's with the seat in its belted position. So you've got your seat belt here, and then the receiver for the belt just there. It's exactly the same operation on the other side, so that forms your 4 belted seats. Okay, so on the opposite side to the seat belt that I just showed you how to operate, you've got your charger unit. Okay, so this here basically takes the main supply that's coming in through the outside, which I showed you, and changes it into a 12-volt current. So there is a switch on this just there, so that's how you switch the charger on and off. Shouldn't need to worry about that, but if you're storing things in there, and you can maybe catch that button and switch it off. But that's the charger unit. Underneath there you'll see a control module, that's dealing with distribution of the power between your batteries, and I think there's a solar regulator within that as well. The leisure battery is just underneath there, so that's where your leisure battery is housed. These seats swivel round. In order to get them to go around, there's a bar, and it's the same on both sides, and it's this bar here. It's like an L-shaped bar, so you pull that way, and that will allow you to swivel the seats. It's a bit more difficult on the driver's side because obviously you've got to negotiate around the steering wheel. If you're struggling with it, you've maybe got to go forward and back on the adjustment on the seats, and also probably the knob to adjust the recline is on the other side, so you've got to just sort of push that forward in order to get it to go around the steering wheel. Okay, we're approaching the end now, but there's some other important things to show you. And the bed and the table, because it's electrically controlled, there's a little key here, so it's sort of a child safety thing really. You've got to have this key in there and then turned all so that it's sort of horizontal. Underneath here, that's where the motor is for the bed. Now if you discharge your battery or there's a problem with the motor somewhere, there needs to be a means of overriding the motor, so you can manually wind the bed up and down. There's a little winder which is just here, so this is the winder. Then it'll be in the pack, in this blue pack here. The way that operates is that it's like an Allen key on the end. So what you do is, you can probably see that this is just a cover. So you take this cover off, gently slide those little grooves out of here, and it reveals the motor. And then you'll see at the bottom of the motor there's like a receptacle for this sort of Allen key to go into, and this is, as you can see, it's like a winder. So you put that into the bottom and wind the bed up and down. It's just it's a override basically if there's a problem with the electrics and you've got your bed stuck. Okay, so that concludes the video. A bit of a long one, this one, but I know there's a lot of customers have bought this model that are first timers and never had a motorhome before, so I've tried to go into as much detail on all the functional and bits that you need to know. But if anybody's got any questions, then feel free to give us a call, or we'd be happy to run through any questions that you may have on the day that you collect this lovely new motorhome. So we look forward to seeing you on the happy day that you collect this lovely new